We made a video not too long ago about things Christians should not say to atheists, but it's about time we flip that around too, because there are a lot of things atheists say, and I see it on YouTube, I see it on blogs, and I'll admit I've done it myself a bunch of times. There are things that we say as atheists that we really shouldn't be saying to Christians either. So let's run through some of those, and hopefully, we can be aware of what the problem is by saying these things, and we can, fix our own habits along the way. Don't make up simplistic reasons for why they believe. You know how sometimes Christians say to us, oh, you're an atheist because you really want to sin, or you're an atheist because something horrible happened to you in your childhood, and you get mad because it's like, no, I put a lot of thought into this idea of God, and I decided that God doesn't exist, and it was a long process, and it wasn't easy, and you should respect that. Well, a lot of times we kind of do the same thing with religious people where we say, oh, you believe just because your parents believed, or you believe just because it's really hard to be an atheist and you're just taking the easy way out. We say to them you're Christian because you're brainwashed, or maybe you're religious because you fear death. And that's almost as insulting. That is as insulting as the things they sometimes say back to us. And the truth is, that does apply to some people. But certainly most Christians will tell you, no, they believe in God because they put a lot of thought into it, and this is the side they landed on. And by the way, I don't think that means they're right. I think it means we need to really understand what their reasons are for why they believe in God, and then go after those. Let's criticize their faulty arguments. But let's not make the mistake of assuming they believe in God for some really simplistic reason, because we know we'd feel horrible if they did the same thing to us. Don't dismiss religion so casually. We often say, religion is bad. Or Christopher Hitchens' book, said how religion poisons everything. It's like, well, when we think about God and we think about religion, we sometimes think about how the church is anti-choice and anti-sex and anti-gay rights, And for a lot of Christians, though, when they think about church, they're not thinking about those things. They're thinking about their community, and they're thinking about the charity work they do with their church, and they're thinking about all the positive memories they have with the church. So when we just dismiss religion so casually, so easily, because of all the horrible things that religion has done, we got to realize that for a lot of Christians, that's not what comes to mind. They may be aware of the perception of religion. They may be aware that their church is part of the reason people feel that way. But that's not why they attend those churches. Not a lot of even evangelicals are going to church saying, yeah, I really want to stick it to gay people today. No, they're going there because they really feel a sense of belonging and meaning. And if we just want to convince them to listen to us and why we have a better argument, it's not going to happen if we just say your church is bad. Because there are a lot of things their church probably does that are really good. And we need to acknowledge that whenever that's possible. That's why when I work with Foundation Beyond Belief, one of the things we do is we say we should give to one religious charity every quarter because there are religious groups that do amazing things, and let's acknowledge that. Don't assume there's one correct form of Christianity. And I've made this mistake myself many times, but let's be honest here. Fred Phelps and Fred Rogers were both Christians. One of them was a raving anti-gay crazy guy. And then you have Fred Rogers, who's this nice guy you just want to hug because he's amazing and wonderful. And both of them are Christians. And who are we to say one of them's the right kind of Christian, one of them's the wrong kind of Christian? The truth is, when you say Christian, you got to be more specific because it really doesn't describe anybody. You got to explain what you mean by that. I mean, there are evangelical Christians who accept evolution, who support same-sex rights, who believe that women should have the right to choose what happens with their bodies. And they believe that, the Bible it tells a lot of stories. We shouldn't be taking it literally. It's not like Ken Ham has it right and Francis Collins, who accepts evolution, has it completely wrong. That's us saying, oh, you're only a true Christian if you believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible. It's basically the no true Scotsman idea, like, oh, if you're not this type of Christian, you're the wrong kind of Christian. Look, this is a debate they're having in their circles all the time about what is a good Christian or a bad Christian, what's a true Christian or an untrue Christian. Even they haven't figured it out. So for us to just say, oh, you're not a real Christian because you did this and I liked it, that's very dismissive and it's not fair. So let's try to be very specific. When we say we are talking about Christians or we have a problem with Christians, let's try to be specific about who we're talking about. Whether it's, evangelical pastors, whether it's, literalist Christians, fundamentalists who believe in a certain way. It doesn't help to just paint a broad brush over all of Christianity and say this group is right and that group is wrong, because there is no right or wrong when it comes to it. That's kind of the wrong dichotomy to put there. There are some people who are, jiving with reality and some that are far away from it. That's our beef. But for them, they don't necessarily say that one group is right, one group is wrong. So let's not fall into that trap. Don't say religious people are stupid. There are some stupid religious people, but you know what? There are also a lot of really stupid atheists. That's the way it works. And there are a lot of really smart Christians out there. And I know most of you know that. And I know you are with me on that. We often say that a lot when we see, older people especially who have been educated and still believe in God. And we're like, oh, that person still believes in fairy tales? You're supposed to grow out of that a long time ago. That person's an idiot. But the truth is, almost all of us were probably religious at some point. And I know when I was religious and I became an atheist, it wasn't that I became smarter all of a sudden. It's that I just started looking at the world in a different way. And that perception was the big change for me. It's not like I magically raised my IQ or something. So let's not just say religious people are stupid. Let's go back to what I said before and let's criticize their arguments and their logic and their reasoning, because we can, and it's really easy to do that. But let's not just dismiss them offhand as idiots. I mean, if someone calls you an idiot, and I know some of you are doing that in the comments right now, the easiest thing for me to do is just say, nope, you're wrong, and just ignore you. But we don't want religious people to ignore us. We want them to listen to us. We want them to come to our side. And it doesn't happen when the first thing out of our mouth is that person is a moron. Don't say religion is a virus or a mental illness. And there are two reasons for this. First of all, it's totally unfair to people who actually struggle with mental illness. So let's not trash them in order to make our point. But the second thing is, think about what that says about religion. If we say, oh, you're religious because you got the virus or you have some sort of mental illness or something, you're saying that religion is something that happens to you. And that's not fair, because that's not true. The truth is, religion is something people choose for themselves, or at least that is the case, at least when they're older. And if we want to be able to convince someone to leave their faith and to become more rational, at least toward our side, that's not going to happen if we just think this is an affliction that they have. You have to understand that, oh, religion is a choice they made, and it's a choice they can get out of. So by calling it a virus or something, you're basically admitting they don't get a choice in the matter. Viruses and mental illnesses don't have an on-off switch like that. Don't say, let's tax the church. It's a rallying cry you hear online a lot, like tax the churches. But that's not really what we want. And let me explain why. There's two big things here. First of all nonprofit groups, from your local church to like the Ronald McDonald House, they are all nonprofit groups. They're all tax exempt. Most of those groups have to tell the IRS every year, this is how much money we took in, this is how many employees we have, this is how much money they made, this is where our money went. Churches don't have to report all of that information. And that means you have churches that spend all sorts of crazy money as salaries for their pastors. Some of these megachurch pastors make ridiculous amounts of money. Sometimes they take in tithes to the tune of millions of dollars a year, but you don't actually know where all that money is going. So first of all, what we want is for churches to follow the same rules other nonprofits follow. And keep in mind that if you say tax the church, what you're really saying is you want to tax every nonprofit group out there. And I don't want that. I don't want nonprofit groups to suffer an additional financial burden because they're doing good work. We should want them to be tax exempt. So it's not that churches should be tax exempt. It's that they should have to tell us what they're doing with the money they take in return for that benefit. Unfortunately, saying something like churches should follow the same rules that all nonprofits follow doesn't quite fit on a bumper sticker the way tax the churches does. So maybe that's why it hasn't caught on. But be careful of your language there, because it's not about taxing the churches. It's about getting them to play on an even playing field. A lot of this list was inspired by a great post written by Ed Brayton, and you could see that link below. And if you think there's anything else that atheists say to Christians that we really need to stop saying, please leave that in the comments below, and we will try to make a follow-up video to this later on with an additional list of things that, we can stop saying because, hey, as much as we want to criticize them, we should at least try to control what we do and make sure we're on the right page. My name is Hemant Mehta, and I write at friendlyatheist.com. Please leave your comments below, and we will be sure to check them out.